Gonna build a mountain from a little hill.
Hey guys, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. My name is DeLady Designer and I'm here with a tutorial of how to build a underwater viewing gallery, and this is only about the basics of how to create one, and hopefully this will help you out to make some beautiful underwater viewing galleries in your own zoos. So let's get started. So right over here, I put down some ideas of how you can create a underwater viewing gallery, and I will show you guys the basics of how to create these simple underwater viewing galleries. Everyone can do this. This is probably the most easiest way of how to create a underwater viewing gallery. So I'm going to show you step by step of how you can create this one. And if you wonder where my UI is, press G and you will hide it and show it again. So press G and you can make beautiful screenshots if you want to in the game. Okay, so what we first want to do in this case is to create some terrain and raise it. So we're just gonna start with just one little piece. We're gonna flatten this terrain to have it the same height. And obviously you can create a beautiful habitat right over here, however you want it to be. Just make sure that the water section you want to have is already smoothed out, because you can't edit the terrain once you added the water in your habitat. So now we're going to add the barriers. So we're gonna grab the glass in this case, and we're gonna start on top, and we make sure that we have the flat top. So it makes sure that the top, whatever you do, is always flat and straight. Now, sometimes you have this issue that you can't put it down. That's because the terrain might be too steep. So what you can do is just smooth out the terrain a little bit, so the game will be able to add that glass barrier. We grab back the glass barrier, and now we are able to put down our glass barrier. So now you can have angle snap on, or you can turn it off to have like very smooth angles, and obviously you can also have curved sections if you want to, but in this case we're going for a straight glass wall. So now we already have a closed section for a water area. So the only thing you now have to do, what you want to do, is flatten the terrain just a little bit right over here, so we have some room for our path section. Now what you do notice, if you do some terrain forming afterwards, you do notice this weird edge right over here. You can fix this by clicking the barrier, edit barrier, and just move this very slightly bit, and you can see it right away connecting again to the terrain. So if you do any terrain forming afterwards, just make sure just to move this section or move the complete section by just clicking the wall and dragging it. And then you have everything selected, and then you will have this same tool and you can move this just slightly. It will adapt. If it turns blue, it will adapt to your terrain, and you have a good to go glassy wall. So now we're just going to add a path section right over here. Now the terrain is too unleveled, so you might want to tweak this just a little bit more to be able to make it straight, and if not, you could just put it down a little bit next to it. Grab the water, and there you have it, your first underwater viewing gallery. Now obviously if this is a habitat, you have to make sure that animals will be able to get into the water. You can make like nice little shapes and stuff. This is pretty simple and round, but you can go really crazy with this if you want to. Now let's go to some more advanced underwater viewing galleries. You can really create some awesome stuff. You can have a lowered path, as you can see right over here. You can have a lowered path with a path going a little bit in a shape, and this is all by using a new terrain tool, which is called the terrain stamp tool. I'm saying new because we didn't have this in Planet Coaster, so this is pretty new for every one of us, but it's super easy to use, and you can create caves with this. You can create a building out of this. You can be super creative if you want to. And as you can see right over here, you don't really have to use glassy walls. You can also use the concrete walls or any wall that holds water. You can see that while hovering over it. So this one is watertight, this one is watertight. And the wooden logs it basically says it's not watertight. But as you can see, once you have put down a wall, and it also works for like walls that are bended. So if you want to bend a wall, you can press Z, and now you can see you can bend it. But the wooden logs you can't bend. But if you replace this one, you can just have a bendy wooden wall. And the same goes for, it's not watertight, but if I replace it, it's still watertight. So take that as advantage. Don't think some things are just not possible. Just try it out if it works. This one is not watertight, but if I put it down, there is already water here. So yeah, you can basically probably use almost everything. I don't think it's going to work with the electric fence, no. And the chain link doesn't really work because that makes more sense. But why not a wooden wall or a gabion wall? So yeah, be creative. Start replacing those walls and see what you can create, and don't worry about something not being bendy. Just create it with something else that is bendy and then try to replace it if you want to. Be creative. So how do you get this nice section of terrain to use for a pathway and a underwater viewing gallery? Let me show you how to do that. So you go to the terrain tool and you get to the cube tool in this case, but you can be creative, use whatever you want to. But for this scenario, we're going to use this cube tool. We're going to change the height a little bit. Doesn't really matter, however you feel like. And we're going to create a big hole in this case. So you can use this terrain tool as a filler. And you can see it will now make some kind of mountain. But obviously we're not going for that. We're going to create a hole section. So when you press X with this tool and press M, you can move it around again. So press X and you get into this advanced move tool option. And if you press X again, you can also get into the rotation option. You also have angle snap, and these tools, if you haven't seen my other tutorial, you can use the same way for the construction area. So it doesn't only work for the terrain, it also works for when you are building and you have non-grid pieces. So okay, now we have our terrain tool and we just create a whole section in this terrain by just clicking with your mouse and just move this around in a nice shape, whatever you want to do. And now we want to have a angled section just to make sure that we are able to put down a path pretty easily. So we turn on angle snap and we rotate it one time with the red circle in this case, and then we're just gonna make sure that this one has a nice drawing comparing to this floor level, because that is the angle you want to have so you can have a smooth path going down. Now in this case I want to rotate this a little bit because I have the feeling that it's not completely straight. And now lower it again. And now we have a nice smooth section like that. And you can always smooth it off a little bit more with the smooth tool like this. And now you have like a free section right over here to create a path. You can put down your glassy walls again to fill it up. And what you see right over here is basically nothing more than a roundabout area and then some barriers around it. So to create a roundabout area, I would suggest starting with the round section. I deleted that by just right clicking on the path, or just use this delete path option. You can drag it over, then your path will be deleted. So just create the roundabout first and just choose whatever width you want it to be. You can make it super big, you can make it super small, whatever you want it to be. I would not suggest using the 4-meter one because it can be very busy, so you create bottlenecks, but whatever you want it to be. And just connect it and you have a very nice round shape. And then you go back and create a nice path section. And now you can just add your glassy barriers next to your path. And now we're going to turn off angle snap and we're going to have the curve sections So now you have that issue that you can't really put it down because the angle isn't right. So just make sure that this pole section over here is on a good spot where you are pretty sure that you will be able to place it if the bend would be good, like so. So press C and you are able to create your own bend. So we're gonna put it down and just create a nice curve. And you can do the same way here. So once you get here, you just go back to your straight section and just finish off your glassy wall. And now you have a roundabout, and then obviously you can create a very beautiful habitat around it. And I would suggest just add the water at the last point because you just can't really play around with the terrain anymore once you added the water. And you can just simply remove the water by having this button or just right click again on the water section. And you can also have it lowered. You can have it however you want it to be. And those edges, you can just replace them. Obviously I use a lot of glass, but you can use the other fences as I just showed you. Now one more thing, because as you can see right over here, I have a raised path. So if you want to do that, you can have it either way. You can do it like that. You can also raise the terrain around your path once you put down your path. So you can have like a big hole like this. So if I delete these path sections just by selecting this and then right click on it, selecting this, right click on it. And now I can just, for example, fill this terrain up again because now I have my path and I want my path to be there, but I don't want anything else. Maybe you even want to have this completely underground so you can fill it up with this terrain tool. So just like that, you can just have this completely filled with terrain. You might want to make the water section just a little bit lower if you want to cover it up nicely, but you can do whatever you want. You can just fill everything up. Make sure obviously that you connect these fence sections again to add some water, but just to give you an idea that by creating a big hole you can still fill it up and then cover this with rocks and stuff and just make sure that your fences will be connected again to a higher edge so you will be able to fill it up with some water. So I should be able, that is not completely connected. Let me move that up to here. So I should be able to again fill this up and you will have a idea of how you could create a underwater cave section if you want to. But you can also replace this terrain with just a lot of rocks. Whatever you want to do, you can obviously do a lot of terrain forming again with this section to close it off. You can create a hill from it, etc. You can go really crazy with just a simple underwater viewing gallery. So how do you create these raised paths? So you can do that by just grabbing a path section and hold shift. And if you hold shift, you can go up and down. And then if you have it on the right height, you can just let go of your shift button and just put down a path which is completely raised. You can also, because sometimes you will notice that if you have a raised path like this, and then you go to this section, it will snap. So to avoid snapping, just press Control, and then you will see that you can move over it. You can even have a raised path above a path. If it's high enough, you can do really crazy things with this. And that is basically how I created this underwater viewing section. How you can create a underwater viewing gallery with those raised paths. I just made a quick big section right over here to show you guys how to create that. So first things first, you want to put down your path however you want it to be. You don't have to have it straight, you can have it in a nice bend. So in this case, I'm just going to have a bend just like so. Now I do want to have this connected to this raised section right over here. So what you want to do is just smooth this a little bit. Now the path tool is a little bit wonky in the game, so it's not you. You sometimes just have to try before it works. But these buttons, the flatten terrain tool and tunneling options, will be able to help you a little bit. So what I want to do right now, I want to have a straight path right over here. Now this basically works, but it looks a little bit wonky over here. So I'm gonna press the tunneling option in this case, so it will make a whole section inside of the terrain for me. Now I don't want it to do that the same thing again if I want to go flat right over here. I don't really want this. So I press Ctrl Z and then turn off the tunneling option, and then I have the flatten terrain option, and then I press this again. So now it will flatten the terrain underneath it, and if you do this again, it will have a little bit of a lowered section. It's slightly lower than the rest of the terrain, so I don't really want to do this. So I press Ctrl Z, turn off flatten terrain now, and now it should be the right height for you to create a path section. So it's pretty easy, pretty doable, and then you can just hide away these edges with some rocks or some construction items, some fences, etc. And obviously you also have the section of railing on elevated path, so you can use the railings from here. I do recommend to first choose what kind of path and maybe a railing you want it to have, because once you have put down your fencing and water section and you don't really feel comfortable of deleting the water section, you won't be able to replace your path in a later stage. So pretty much make sure that your path section firstly is finished and then start constructing the rest of it. So just like the other sections, just start on the highest point, which makes it easier for you to have a flat top. Create a underwater viewing gallery by putting down your fences and add some water. And there you have it. Again, another very quick underwater viewing gallery. As long as you make sure that your fences are on the right height, you are good to go. And these kind of things, it happens. I think it's something in the game. I just hide it away with a rock, or just make sure that people and I don't really see it. So yeah, I really hope this was helpful for you guys. Do let me know in the comment section down below. Do make sure to subscribe, of course, if you already haven't. If you want more inspiration of how to build underwater viewing galleries or other habitats, I have tons of videos on my channel. Leave a like at the video if you enjoyed, and I really hope to see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye guys.